When I installed the new smart security system in my Denver home last October, I thought I was just being a cautious old man. I never imagined that 3 weeks later, I'd be sitting in an FBI field office, watching my own son confess to planning my murder. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because this story still keeps me up at night. My name is Robert Morrison. I'm 64 years old, a retired aerospace engineer who spent 37 years designing navigation systems for commercial aircraft. My wife Linda passed away from breast cancer 4 years ago, leaving me alone in the 4-bedroom house we'd bought in the Cherry Creek neighborhood back in 1995. The place is worth close to $900,000 now. Plus I've got a decent pension and about $600,000 in retirement accounts. Not rich by Denver standards, but comfortable. I have one son, Marcus, 36 years old, works in pharmaceutical sales, or at least he used to. Marcus had always been my pride and joy. Captain of his high school soccer team, graduated from CU Boulder with honors, married a beautiful woman named Vanessa 5 years ago. They seemed happy. They seemed normal. That's the part that haunts me most, how completely normal everything seemed. It was late September when Marcus called me, his voice tight with stress. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something. Can I come over tonight?" Of course I said yes. What kind of father would I be if I didn't make time for my son? He showed up at 7 that evening, alone. Vanessa usually came with him for visits, but not that night. I should have known something was wrong right then. Marcus looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, his dress shirt wrinkled, his normally perfect hair uncombed. We sat in the living room, and he told me his marriage was falling apart. "Vanessa wants a divorce," he said, staring at his hands. "She's been having an affair with someone from her yoga studio, some personal trainer half her age. I found the texts on her phone last week. I felt my heart break for him. Son, I'm so sorry. How are you holding up?" "Not great, Dad." "And there's more." He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. Or at least, I thought they were real at the time. "The divorce is going to destroy me financially. She wants half of everything, including my $401K. My lawyer says I'll have to sell the condo, and with the market where it is, I'll barely break even after the mortgage. I'll have nothing." "What about your job?" I asked. "You're doing well at MedTech Solutions, aren't you?" He shook his head. "I got laid off 3 weeks ago. The whole sales division got cut. I've been too embarrassed to tell anyone." "Dad, I'm drowning here. I don't know what to do." What was I supposed to say? This was my son, my only child, sitting in front of me in pieces. "You can stay here," I heard myself saying. "You can move into your old room until you get back on your feet. Take all the time you need." The relief on his face seemed so genuine. He stood up and hugged me tight. "Thank you, Dad. I promise it'll just be temporary. Just until I find a new job and get through the divorce." Marcus moved in the following weekend. He brought 3 suitcases and a handful of boxes. Everything else, he said, was at the condo with Vanessa. I helped him set up the guest bedroom, the same room he'd slept in as a teenager, and tried to make him feel at home. I cooked his favorite meals, gave him space when he needed it, and listened when he wanted to talk about his failed marriage. For the first 2 weeks, everything seemed fine. Marcus spent his days applying for jobs online, going to interviews, meeting with his divorce lawyer. He was considerate and helpful around the house. We fell into a comfortable routine. I actually enjoyed having him there. The house had felt so empty since Linda died. Then Vanessa started coming around. The first time, Marcus told me she was bringing over some of his belongings that he'd forgotten. His good suits for interviews, some important documents. She showed up on a Tuesday afternoon while I was out getting groceries. When I came home, I found them sitting together at the kitchen table, papers spread out between them, talking in low voices. They stopped immediately when I walked in. "Hey, Dad," Marcus said, standing up quickly. "Vanessa just dropped off some stuff." Vanessa turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was a striking woman, long dark hair, expensive clothes, the kind of polish that comes from money and time. "Hi, Robert. Good to see you." "I thought you two were getting divorced," I said, setting down the grocery bags. "We are," Vanessa replied smoothly. "But we're trying to keep things civil, for both our sakes." Something about her tone bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on what. They left soon after, saying they needed to meet with the mediator. I unpacked the groceries and tried to shake off the uneasy feeling settling in my chest. Vanessa came back 3 more times that week. Each time, Marcus had an explanation. They needed to discuss asset division. She was returning more of his things. They had to sign some paperwork. And each time, I'd come home or walk into a room to find them having quiet, intense conversations that stopped the moment they noticed me. On the 4th visit, I interrupted them in Marcus's room. The door was cracked open, and I heard Vanessa's voice, sharp and urgent. "We need to move faster. Every day we wait is another day something could go wrong." I knocked and pushed the door open. They were sitting on the bed, Marcus's laptop open between them. They both looked up, startled. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, Dad," Marcus said too quickly. "Just going over some financial stuff with Vanessa." "Divorce is so complicated," Vanessa added with that same cold smile. "So many details to work out." I nodded and left, but the unease had grown into something darker. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about their behavior. The whispered conversations, the way they stopped talking when I appeared, the intensity in Vanessa's voice. Something was wrong. But what could I do? Confront my son and accuse him of what? Having private conversations with his soon-to-be ex-wife? That's when I remembered the security system offer I'd received in the mail 2 weeks earlier. A local company, Secure Home Denver, was running a promotion. Full home installation with indoor and outdoor cameras, smart locks, the works, at a 40% discount. Linda and I had talked about getting a system years ago but never got around to it. With Marcus and Vanessa coming and going, with my unease growing, it suddenly seemed like a good idea. I called Secure Home the next morning and scheduled an installation for that Friday. When I told Marcus about it at dinner that night, something flickered across his face. Was it alarm? But it passed so quickly I convinced myself I'd imagined it. "That's a good idea, Dad," he said. "This neighborhood isn't as safe as it used to be. You hear about those break-ins last month?" The technician arrived Friday afternoon while Marcus was out at a job interview. His name was Kyle, a friendly kid in his 20s who spent 3 hours installing cameras and sensors. He set up cameras at the front door, back door, and garage. Then he suggested indoor cameras too. "A lot of our customers like having them in common areas," Kyle said, "especially older folks living alone. If you ever fall or need help, the camera can detect it and alert emergency services." It made sense, so I agreed. Kyle installed cameras in the living room, kitchen, and the hallway upstairs. He showed me how to access everything through an app on my phone and computer, how to review recorded footage, how to set up motion alerts. "The system stores footage for 30 days before it gets deleted," Kyle explained. "You can access it anytime, from anywhere." Pretty cool, right? I thanked him and paid the bill. After he left, I sat down with my laptop and explored the app. It was intuitive enough even for a 64-year-old like me who still preferred paper flight manuals to digital ones. I could see live feeds from all the cameras, scrub through past recordings, set up custom alerts. I felt safer already. Here's the thing I didn't think about at the time. I never mentioned to Marcus that the technician had installed indoor cameras. I told him about the outdoor ones. But somehow the indoor cameras never came up in conversation. Kyle had installed them while Marcus was out. And by the time my son got home that evening, I'd already forgotten to mention it. I showed him the app, the outdoor camera feeds, how the front door alert worked. But the indoor cameras, they just slipped my mind. That oversight saved my life. Marcus and Vanessa's behavior didn't change after the security system went in. If anything, they became more careful. They started having their conversations outside, in the backyard, or sitting in Vanessa's car in the driveway. But they still had to interact inside the house, and the cameras caught everything. I didn't check the footage right away. Why would I? The system was working. The motion alerts told me when someone came or went. Everything seemed normal. It wasn't until 3 weeks later, on a Wednesday night in late October, that I had reason to look at the recordings. I'd been feeling off all day. Dizzy, nauseous, my heart racing. I thought maybe I was coming down with something. I went to bed early, around 8 o'clock, and slept fitfully. When I woke up around midnight, my head was pounding and my mouth was incredibly dry. I went downstairs to get water and some aspirin. As I passed Marcus's room, I heard him on the phone. His door was ajar, and his voice carried into the hallway. "I told you, I'm increasing it gradually. he was saying. Too much at once, and it'll be obvious. We need it to look natural. Yes, I know the timeline. Vanessa, I'm not an idiot. I'm handling it. I froze. Increasing what gradually? What timeline? What needed to look natural? I walked past quickly, got my water, and went back to my room. But I couldn't sleep. My heart was pounding, and not from whatever illness I thought I had. I grabbed my laptop and opened the Secure Home app. The system had been recording for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of footage, time-stamped, and organized by camera. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I started with the most recent recordings from the hallway camera, the one that faced Marcus's bedroom door. I scrubbed through the footage from earlier that evening. At 6:47 p.m., I saw myself walk past the camera, heading to my bedroom. At 7:23 p.m., Marcus left his room and went downstairs. The kitchen camera picked him up, opening the refrigerator, taking out a container. The living room camera showed him carrying it to the kitchen counter. Then he did something that made my blood run cold. Marcus looked around carefully, checking to make sure he was alone. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small Ziploc bag containing white pills. He crushed 2 pills with the back of a spoon, mixed the powder into the container's contents, my leftovers from dinner, and put the container back in the fridge. My dinner. He drugged my dinner. That's why I felt so sick. My hands were shaking as I backed up the footage and watched it again. There was no mistaking what I'd seen. My son had deliberately contaminated my food. But why? What was he trying to do? I started scrubbing through older footage, going back through the previous days and weeks. What I found made me feel like I was living in a nightmare. October 20th, 4:15 p.m. Marcus in the kitchen, adding something to my coffee mug while I was out. October 17th, 6:32 p.m. Marcus in the bathroom, tampering with my prescription bottles. I watched him switch pills from one bottle to another. October 14th, 3:40 p.m. Vanessa in my home office. What was she doing there? I watched as she photographed documents from my filing cabinet. My will, my life insurance policy, bank statements. October 12th, 7:15 p.m. Marcus and Vanessa in the living room. Their conversation picked up by the camera's microphone. I turned up the volume and listened. How much longer? Vanessa's voice. Dr. Chen said with the combination we're giving him, maybe 3 to 4 weeks. His heart condition makes him vulnerable. And it'll look natural? Completely. Heart failure, they'll say. He's 64, he's got high blood pressure, his wife died of cancer a few years ago. The stress, the grief, it all adds up. No one will question it. What about after? How fast can we access the accounts? I'm the beneficiary on everything. Life insurance pays out within a few weeks usually. The house will take longer, but I can get a bridge loan using the insurance money as collateral. And the business we discussed? Once the insurance money comes through, we'll have $800,000 to invest. Combined with what we can get for the house, that's close to $1.7 million. More than enough to expand the operation. I had to pause the video. I was going to be sick. Actually, physically sick. My son wasn't just planning to kill me. He was planning to use my death as startup capital for some kind of business. But what business? What operation? I forced myself to keep watching, to keep digging through the footage, and what I found was so much worse than I could have imagined. October 10th, late evening. Marcus on his phone in his room, door closed. The audio was muffled, but I enhanced it through the app's settings. Trevor, it's me. Yeah, we're on track for Morrison. No, same protocol as the others. I know, but this one's personal, so I have to be more careful. Yes, Vanessa's handling the documentation. 4 weeks, maybe 5. Then we move to the next one. Who's next on the list? The widow in Boulder? Perfect. Similar profile to Morrison. Shouldn't raise any flags. The next one. The widow in Boulder. The others. Oh God. This wasn't just about me. My fingers flew over the keyboard as I opened a new browser window and searched for news stories. Suspicious deaths, Denver area elderly. Unexpected deaths, Colorado seniors. Insurance fraud investigation. The results made me go cold. 6 months ago, Harold Patterson, 72, died of apparent heart failure in his Lakewood home. His nephew had been staying with him at the time. The nephew inherited everything. 4 months ago, Margaret Chen, 68, died of an accidental overdose of sleeping pills in Boulder. Her daughter and son-in-law had recently moved in to care for her. They inherited her estate. 2 months ago, David Kruger, 75, died of a stroke in Littleton. His younger brother had been living with him. Large life insurance payout. I searched for the nephew, the daughter, the brother. Social media, public records, anything I could find. It took me 2 hours. But I found the connection. They were all connected to a company called Evergreen Financial Solutions, a financial planning firm that specialized in estate planning for seniors. The company was registered to a Trevor Castellano, and according to his LinkedIn profile, Marcus worked there. Not at MedTech Solutions like he'd told me. At Evergreen Financial Solutions. I searched deeper. Evergreen Financial had been operating for 18 months. During that time, at least 6 elderly clients had died unexpectedly, all with surviving relatives who had recently become close to them, all with large insurance payouts, all with estates that were processed through Evergreen Financial. This wasn't just murder. This was organized, systematic, a ring of people targeting wealthy elderly people, getting close to them through family connections, killing them slowly to make it look natural, and collecting the insurance money. And my son was part of it. My son, who I'd raised, who I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework and sent to college. My son was a serial killer. I don't remember much of the rest of that night. I know I sat at my laptop for hours, downloading footage, taking screenshots, documenting everything. The evidence was all there. The conversations, the drugging, the connections to the other victims. When the sun came up, I had a decision to make. Confront Marcus? Call the police? Run? I thought about confronting him, but what would that accomplish? He was actively poisoning me. If he knew I'd discovered his plan, he might panic and do something more direct. I thought about running, but where would I go? And what about the other potential victims? The widow in Boulder they'd mentioned. If I just disappeared, Marcus and his accomplices would move on to the next target. No, I needed to do this right. I needed to involve the authorities, but I needed proof that would hold up, and I needed to make sure these people couldn't run before they were arrested. I called my friend James Sullivan. We'd worked together for 20 years at Lockheed Martin. James had retired a year before me and immediately got bored, so he'd gone back to work as a consultant for the Denver Police Department, helping them with technical surveillance equipment. Jim, I need your help with something, and I need you to not ask questions until I explain everything. There must have been something in my voice, because he agreed immediately. We met at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, far from my neighborhood. I showed him everything on my laptop, the footage, the connections, the pattern of deaths. Jim's face grew darker as he watched. Jesus Christ, Rob. This is FBI jurisdiction. Multiple murders, interstate insurance fraud. We need to get this to the federal authorities immediately. He made a call right there. And 3 hours later, I was sitting in a conference room at the FBI's Denver field office with Special Agent Sarah Reeves. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and no nonsense. I walked her through everything, showed her all the evidence I'd collected. Mr. Morrison, I need you to understand something, she said when I finished. This is an active investigation now. What you've uncovered connects to cases we've been working on for the past 6 months. We've suspected Evergreen Financial of elder fraud, but we didn't have concrete evidence of murder. This footage, these recordings, this is the break we needed. What happens now? I asked. Now, you need to go home and act normal. We're going to set up surveillance on your house and on Evergreen Financial's offices. We're going to build a case against everyone involved. But we need you to play along, at least for a few more days. Can you do that? Could I go home and pretend everything was normal while my son continued trying to poison me? Could I sit across from him at dinner and make small talk? The idea made me want to vomit. What about the drugs he's giving me? I asked. He's been increasing the dosage. What if it's too much? We'll have an agent nearby at all times, and we'll have medical personnel on standby. We're also going to get you some substitute pills that look identical to your real prescriptions. You'll switch them out tonight. That way, whatever Marcus is tampering with won't actually harm you. I agreed. What choice did I have? The next 4 days were the longest of my life. I went home and acted normal. Marcus asked how I was feeling, and I told him I was still a bit under the weather but getting better. I ate the food he prepared, not mentioning that I'd started secretly dumping it down the garbage disposal and eating granola bars in my room instead. I took the pills from the tampered bottles, knowing they were actually placebos the FBI had provided. FBI agents, I learned, were watching from a van parked down the street. They had ears on all the conversations happening in my house through enhanced audio feeds from my security cameras. They were building their case, connecting Marcus and Vanessa to Trevor Castellano, to the other family members who'd killed their elderly relatives, to the entire network. On the fourth day, Agent Reeves called me. "We're ready to move. Tomorrow morning, we're going to execute search warrants and make arrests. You need to not be home. Can you find an excuse to be gone early?" I told Marcus I had a doctor's appointment at 7 a.m., a follow-up for my illness. He seemed pleased by this, probably thinking I was about to be diagnosed with the heart condition he'd been trying to give me. I left at 6:30 the next morning and drove to a McDonald's parking lot 3 miles away. Agent Reeves called me at 7:15. "It's done. We have them." I drove back to my house to find 4 FBI vehicles in my driveway. Marcus and Vanessa were being led out in handcuffs. My son's face was white with shock. When he saw me, his expression changed to something I'd never seen before. Pure hatred. "You were supposed to be gone," he said, as an agent guided him into a car. "You were supposed to be dead." Vanessa was screaming at the agents, demanding her lawyer. But it didn't matter. They had everything. The footage, the recordings, the pattern of deaths, the financial trails. Agent Reeves walked up to me. "We arrested Trevor Castellano and 4 others this morning. We've got enough evidence to put them away for multiple life sentences. You did the right thing, Mr. Morrison." I didn't feel like I'd done the right thing. I felt empty, hollowed out. The next weeks were a blur of statements and depositions. The full scope of the operation came out in the news. Evergreen Financial Solutions had been a front for an organized elder murder ring. Trevor Castellano recruited people with elderly relatives who had substantial assets. He trained them to get close to their targets, to gain their trust, to slowly kill them using drugs and stress while making it look like natural causes. The murderers would inherit the estates and invest the money with Evergreen Financial, which Castellano would use to fund the operation and pay everyone's cut. Marcus and Vanessa had killed 3 people before me. Harold Patterson had been Vanessa's uncle. Margaret Chen had been Marcus's former neighbor. They'd befriended her and convinced her to let them move in. David Kruger had been their first victim, an elderly client of Evergreen Financial who Marcus had been assigned to target. They'd planned to kill me and use the money to become full partners in the operation. Then they would have continued, targeting wealthy elderly people across Colorado and beyond. The trial was 8 months later. I had to testify. I had to sit in that courtroom and watch my son's face as the prosecutors played the security camera footage of him drugging my food. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Marcus got life without parole. Vanessa got life without parole. Trevor Castellano got 3 consecutive life sentences. 4 other conspirators got various lengthy sentences. The widow in Boulder they'd mentioned? FBI found her in time. She'd just hired Evergreen Financial for estate planning, and her nephew had just moved in with her. They arrested the nephew before he could do any harm. I'm still in the house in Cherry Creek. I still have all the security cameras. I check the footage obsessively, even though there's nothing to see anymore. Just an old man living alone, trying to make sense of how his son became a monster. People ask me sometimes how I missed the signs, how I didn't know my own son was capable of this. The truth is, I don't have a good answer. I saw what I wanted to see. A son going through a rough time. A father able to help. I ignored my instincts, the small voice telling me something was wrong, because I couldn't imagine that my own child would try to murder me for money. But here's what I learned. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't assume that family means safety. And for God's sake, install security cameras. That split-second decision to upgrade to indoor cameras. That moment when I forgot to tell Marcus they were there. That oversight saved my life and stopped killers who might have gone on to murder dozens more. I'm 65 now. I've started volunteering with an elder abuse prevention organization. I tell my story to other seniors, warning them about the signs of financial exploitation, encouraging them to stay vigilant even with family members they trust. Especially with family members they trust. Because the people you trust the most are the ones who have the best opportunity to betray you. And sometimes that betrayal isn't just emotional or financial. Sometimes it's fatal. I still have nightmares about those 4 days after discovering the truth. Walking around my own home, watching my son poison my food, knowing that at any moment the dosage might be enough to kill me for real. The FBI said I was brave. I don't feel brave. I feel like I got lucky. Lucky that I installed cameras. Lucky that I forgot to mention the indoor ones. Lucky that I woke up thirsty that night and overheard Marcus's phone call. Lucky that I had a friend who knew how to reach the right authorities. Lucky that the FBI was already investigating and could move quickly. How many other elderly people aren't that lucky? How many trust their children or nieces or nephews or caregivers, only to be betrayed in the worst possible way? The prosecutors told me that elder financial abuse cases are increasing every year, but most of them never result in charges because there's not enough evidence. How many of those cases involve murder disguised as natural death? I think about Harold Patterson sometimes, about Margaret Chen and David Kruger, about all the victims who trusted the wrong people and paid with their lives. They didn't have security cameras. They didn't wake up at the right time to overhear the wrong conversation. They died thinking their family loved them, never knowing the truth. That might be the worst part. At least I know. At least I survived. At least I could get justice, not just for myself, but for the others who couldn't. But knowing comes with its own cost. I'll never have a family again. Marcus was my only child, and he's spending the rest of his life in prison. I have no grandchildren, no one to pass my memories or my estate to. When I die, from actual natural causes, whenever that happens, everything I've built will probably go to charity. That's okay. Better that than having it stolen by someone who was supposed to love me. If you're reading this or hearing this story, and you have elderly parents or relatives, please check on them. Not just with phone calls, but real visits. Look for signs of financial manipulation, of isolation, of unexplained health problems. Ask questions. Trust your instincts when something feels off. And if you're an elderly person living alone or with family members you're not entirely sure about, protect yourself. Install security cameras. Keep your financial information secure. Have multiple people you trust, not just one. Don't give anyone too much power over your life or your assets. Technology saved my life. A security system I almost didn't install. Cameras I forgot to mention. Footage I almost didn't watch. In the end, those digital eyes saw what I couldn't see, recorded what I didn't want to believe, and provided evidence that stopped killers in their tracks. Some people say I'm paranoid now, living in a house full of cameras, checking the footage daily, even though I live alone. Maybe they're right, but I'm alive. And thanks to those cameras, so is the widow in Boulder, and who knows how many other potential victims who were on Trevor Castellano's list. That's worth a little paranoia. The last time I saw Marcus was at his sentencing hearing. He looked at me across the courtroom, and for just a second, I saw a flash of the little boy I'd raised, the son who'd hugged me and called me his hero. Then his expression hardened, and he mouthed 2 words at me. I'm sorry. I don't know if he meant it. I don't know if he was sorry for trying to kill me, or sorry he got caught. I don't know if somewhere deep inside him, there's still a piece of the son I loved, or if that person was always just an illusion. I guess I'll never know. And maybe that's for the best. What I do know is this. Betrayal is most devastating when it comes from those we love most. Trust is precious and should be given carefully, even to family. And sometimes, the best protection we have is not love or hope or faith in human goodness, but cold, digital surveillance that captures the truth we're too close to see ourselves. My name is Robert Morrison. I'm 65 years old. I'm a widower, a retired engineer, and a survivor. I'm the father of a son serving life without parole for multiple murders. And I'm the man who forgot to turn off his security cameras. That forgetfulness saved my life. Maybe it can save yours too.